There's no denying the X-Maxx is a king in the RC world, and it is one of the best RC bashers ever made. But out of all of the RC cars that I own, the X-Maxx is probably one of the least used RC trucks that I own. But why would I do such a thing? Why would I leave a beast like the X-Maxx stuck at home? Before I get into the reasons why my X-Maxx barely gets any use, I want to tell you very quickly how I ended up owning this beast of an RC car. Ever since its release, I always wanted an X-Maxx, but I could never justify the insanely high price. A lot of people don't know, but I actually left the hobby in 2010 and I only got back into RC in 2020. And it was also at that time that I started creating RC content. I started doing YouTube videos, and after about a year I was able to monetize my channel, which did allow me to have some extra income, and it allowed me to buy one of my dream RC cars, which was of course the X-Maxx. So I visited my local Traxxas store, which is no longer there, which is a real shame, but I picked up the X-Maxx in person, and as soon as I see it, I knew this was going to be a beast of an RC truck. The size and presence of the X-Maxx is something you really have to experience if you like RC cars, because bearing in mind I've had a lot of RC cars over the years, I was really surprised by how big this thing really is. Now in the past I'd only ever owned smaller trucks like 1/10 scale and 1/8 scale trucks, so when I see the X-Maxx for the first time, I have to say I was really surprised. The first few weeks I loved taking the X-Maxx out and I really enjoyed it, but I quickly realised it may have been a total mistake, and spending £1,000 on an RC car may have been the worst decision I ever made. And since then the X-Maxx has very quickly become a very expensive paperweight. But why? Now let's start by talking about the size and weight of the truck, because let's face it, it is huge and it also weighs a lot. Transporting the X-Maxx becomes a chore and it requires a lot of space in your car or your truck. And then if you take it out and you end up breaking it, it's a long walk back to the car with a very heavy truck. Yeah, it's not always ideal. Also, because it's huge, storage at home is always an issue as well, unless you have a decent sized workshop or garage to store it. And then we have to move on to space requirements, because running the X-Maxx requires a lot of space. It's definitely not suited to small yards or back gardens. I would also say it's probably not the best truck to use at a public park, for example. You really don't want to be hitting anyone with an X-Maxx. And if you do, you're going to cause some serious damage. Finding suitable places to run the X-Maxx can definitely become quite difficult unless you're lucky enough to have lots of open land or lots of really cool places where you could run it comfortably. 1/10 scale and 1/8 scale trucks can pretty much be run anywhere due to the size of them, whereas the X-Maxx, that just isn't possible. The other thing I don't like about the X-Maxx is the electronics. I think that's a common thing across a lot of the Traxxas cars. They just don't seem to be that good. And the ESC on mine has never quite felt right, which is crazy considering this truck cost £1,000. I think most people would expect an RC car that costs that much to pretty much be perfect out the box. Now, no RC car is perfect, and I fully appreciate that sometimes you do have to make some upgrades and modify some stuff as well, but at the very least the electronics should be spot on considering the price of the truck. Then there's the steering servo, which again is a common issue on these. Now my truck's working perfectly fine at the moment with the stock electronics, and yes, of course I could go out and spend money on a new ESC and of course a new servo as well, but then I kind of think to myself, I've already pumped in a lot of money into this truck. How much more money do I need to spend on it? And again, I go back to what I said originally, this thing should be pretty much perfect as soon as you get it out the box. So I have very quickly realised that buying this dream truck may have been one of the worst decisions I ever made. Now it's not all bad, because the X-Maxx does offer a very unique driving experience. It's well known in the hobby that the X-Maxx is one of the best large scale bashers you can buy, and I totally agree. I think it is one of the best RC cars ever made. It's just a shame that you do have to pump a lot of extra money into it to actually make it better and to actually make it kind of useful. Out the box, yeah, it's not really the best. So the X-Maxx was always a truck that I wanted, but was just out of reach for me at the time, until I started doing YouTube. And it's essentially you guys who watch my channel who allowed me to get this truck. You know, sometimes they say you should never meet your heroes. It's kind of that situation with the X-Maxx. I think it's been about a year since I've had the X-Maxx out. And it sounds really bad, but I haven't really missed it. It's just too big, too bulky. and too much of a pain to transport a lot of the time. A lot of the smaller trucks will give you the same level of fun that the X-Maxx gives you. You don't need something like this, you know, this big, leery X-Maxx to have fun in the hobby. And that's another reason why it rarely comes out, because all the effort that you put in to get this thing running properly, and then it's kind of like a little bit of a disappointment, because you can get exactly the same effect from a 1/8 scale truck. Don't let me put you off from buying one of these, because I know for a lot of people the X-Maxx is a dream truck, especially for a lot of the people getting into the hobby who have a lot of the more budget cars, who would love something like the X-Maxx, who are probably thinking, wow, you have an X-Maxx and you're complaining, you know. Yeah, I do, but you know, it's just not what you'd expect it to be. You would definitely expect it to be the best RC truck ever. Yeah, you may feel a little bit underwhelmed by the X-Maxx, especially when you get it out the box. That's all I'm gonna say. So there we go then. I think we've learned today that my Traxxas X-Maxx spends most of its time at home, not actually being used. And like I said at the start of the video, there's a lot of reasons why I choose not to run my X-Maxx all the time. There's also a lot of reasons why I choose not to pump even more money into it. I think if you wanted to, you could throw endless amounts of money at the X-Maxx, and there's definitely people out there who have. Maybe I'm just being stubborn and I'm refusing to pump even more money into it. I just think it should be so much better out the box. Performance issues aside, then of course you have the size and the weight of it. It just becomes a bit of a pain, and there's been situations where I've parked up, had about a 10-minute walk to a really cool location, the truck breaks, and then it's a very long and painful walk back to the car. Of course, that's just my experience though. You may not have any issues with the X-Maxx or the size of the X-Maxx. If you live close to really cool locations, well, of course, you're not going to experience the same issues as me. Every X-Maxx owner out there is different. Some people will find all of these things an issue, some people won't. So looking back to when I first got the truck, would I do it all again? Do you know what? I'm actually in two minds with this one. I do really love the X-Maxx. It is definitely a unique truck, and it's definitely a truck I would say every serious RC enthusiast should own. But there are lots of 1/8 scale trucks out there that will give you the same level of fun as the X-Maxx. Would I say the X-Maxx is overrated? Yes, I think I actually would. I don't think it's as good as many people would think. But again, that's just my personal opinion. You may completely disagree. It's a tough decision because I do love the X-Maxx, but going back, would I do it all again? I don't think I would. So let me know your thoughts and opinions on the Traxxas X-Maxx. Is it your dream RC truck? You may already own one, and if you do, let me know in the comments what you've changed on yours. I'd love to know how much extra money you've pumped into your truck, and anyone who says they've never spent a penny on the X-Maxx, I'm not going to believe it. Everyone knows you need to upgrade it, you need to make modifications to make it better out the box. That is definitely common knowledge. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below, and if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and make sure you've got notifications turned on as well. We're getting very close to 50,000 subscribers. Let's make it happen. Cheers for watching. See you on the next one. Take care. If you want to see more of the Traxxas X-Maxx on my channel, click one of these videos now.